All right, good morning, everyone. Is my audio okay, Krista?
You seem to be coming through, Claire.
Okay, thank you. Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Mechanical Ventilation and Plumbing Code TAG meeting. This is a meeting for Monday, May 13th, and we're scheduled to go from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. today. The agenda has been posted to the website and it's on the screen right now, so we're going to kick it off. Just welcoming everyone, just saying appreciate everyone volunteering for this code cycle. I'm sorry I missed the kind of kickoff meeting last month, but I'm excited to get into reviewing model code changes and looking at them against our previous amendments. All right, so Krista, do we typically do like a roll call or something like that?
Yeah.
All right.
So we start off with Ben Omura, the chair,
Here.
and Justin Borgo, our alternate chair.
I am here. Good morning.
Good morning. Steve Hart, representing building officials. Thought I saw him on earlier. Yeah. Are you there, Steve?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Janice Goucher, who's the alternate for building official position. Ray Shipman, representing the fire officials, fire marshals. I don't believe he's here today. Laura Boyd, representing cities and counties.
Hi, everyone. I'm here.
And Celeste Desai, who is the alternate. Ken Nelson, representing manufacturers suppliers.
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning.
Ian Casey, representing mechanical engineers.
I'm here.
Bill Masaki, representing mechanical contractors.
Good morning.
Steve Simpson, representing the plumbing trade.
Good morning.
Harpreet Sandhu, representing general public, subject matter experts as primary. Kevin Duell is his alternate.
Hi, this is Kevin.
Alexandra Boris, our IAQ specialist.
Here. Good morning.
Jonathan Jones, representing educators. David Price, representing plumbing officials. So we do have a quorum.
All right, excellent. Okay, do we ask if anyone else from the other attendees wants to introduce themselves?
Sure. And if you want to do just general self-introductions of all the new members, since this is our first tag meeting. I don't know if you want to spend the time doing that or.
I guess like I'm not sure how much of that was done in the previous session. I guess obviously like I'm Ben Omura, representing mechanical engineers on the State Building Code Council, and Justin, Vice Chair. Can you introduce yourself? Maybe.
Absolutely. Justin Borgo. I'm with Sheet Metal Workers Local 66, and I'm representing the building trades.
Great, thank you. And yeah, I guess if any other tag members want to introduce themselves, that'd be appreciated. So your role and if we kind of went through the roll call, but feel free.
Hi, I'm Laura Bloyd, and I'm one of the mechanical plants examiners here for the city of Bellevue, and I'm representing the city county seat.
Thanks, Laura.
My name's
Hi.
Steve Simpson. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You go first.
My name's Steve Simpson. I'm a former council member. I sat on the council for 3 terms, was council chair. I'm really happy to be back involved in the tag process and hope I can help in any way. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellie?
Thanks. So good morning. I'm Allie Boris. I'm with the Washington State Department of Health and happy to be filling the role of the IAQ specialist, taking over for Nancy Bernard, who is retiring this year.
Yeah, hi. My name is Ian Casey with Northwest Natural, and I'm serving on this committee representing mechanical engineers.
Great, thanks, Ethan. Yeah, I guess, yeah, if anyone else wants to go in, please raise your hand, and then any other attendees as well, feel free to raise your hand for intros. Dave?
Hi, I'm Dave Price, Assistant Chief Plumbing Inspector for Public Health Seattle County. First time on the tag. Nice to
Thank
see
you.
everyone.
Great to have you. Eric?
Eric Vandermeer with Delta E Consulting, just interested party listening in and excited about the 2024 codes.
Who isn't? Thank you. Andrea?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Andrea Smith with the Building Industry Association of Washington. Just tune in. Thanks.
Thank you. Jed?
Good morning, Jed Sherman here with the IATMO group, here to pay attention to what's going on and support in any way I can.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Okay, thanks everyone. And yeah, thanks to all the returning tag members as well as the new ones who have volunteered for this for the first time. Yeah, so without further ado, I guess, can we move on to review and approve the agenda? And Chris, I don't know if someone needs to make a motion to do that.
Yeah, if we can get a motion to approve the agenda, or if somebody has a change they'd like to make.
Bill
I make-
Masaki, move for approval.
Second.
All right. Any public comment on the agenda? No. Any other council or tag member commentary on it? We did put the schedule discussion right after this item, before we get into review of amendments and existing changes and model code changes. So, all right. Without that, we can go ahead and call for a vote.
So all in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
Hi.
Anyone against, say nay. Okay,
All right.
so we're on to the future schedule.
Great. And Krista, did you have like a outline of this? I know there's been a couple developments with the committee meeting being canceled for this month.
Right, so for the most part, the other tags weren't ready, or it was unknown if they would be ready to report out at the committee meetings that were scheduled for next week. So we've gone ahead and put off that reporting until June, which will either shorten or delay the code change submittal date a little bit. But we felt it was important to get everything in and done and try to keep everything on the same schedule. So it was kind of unsure whether we would get through the entire review today in the 2 hours that we have. And so we may be scheduling another meeting to do that.
Exactly. And I guess, is everyone aware of where to find the current schedule?
Yeah, there should be a copy posted on the tag page for today's meeting.
And I guess, do any tag members have questions about like the process and goals of our review and the reporting that we'll issue to the MVPE committee?
So this is Laura Lloyd. I'm trying to pull up that schedule. It seemed as though there was a end of May date. Actually, can we pull up the schedule and look at it together?
Sure.
And actually, since this is the first time I've been on a tag, if we can kind of go through that, so I better understand that, that would be helpful.
Let's see if I can blow this up a little bit. So this schedule shows that the tags report out to the council on May 24th, and that's probably not going to be happening until the June 21st meeting. And the council will determine at that time what the submission period will be, if it will be truncated and still be due by the 24th, or if they'll give it another couple of weeks to go through.
Okay, that's helpful. So yeah, I was just noticing that the May date of having that first yeah, all that stuff done. So it sounds like that's getting pushed then a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the third column is for the energy code tag. So you're looking at this first column of targeted report dates for this tag.
And I guess I'll say that the UPC, and if we are taking part in reviewing residential code items, would be part of group 2. Is that right, Krista?
Correct.
So that's like the fourth column, like way off to the right.
Well, it'll be down here.
Yeah.
When we start on group 2s.
Yeah. So we have obviously we've kind of combined the mechanical and plumbing sides. So hoping that we'll have good attendance throughout the cycle so we can achieve quorum and work through these items efficiently. And I guess for kind of what we have on our plate right now, I'm well, we'll see how far we get, but in the likely event we don't make it through all of the items that were circulated for the IMC and IFGC we'll likely be looking at scheduling another meeting either later this month or maybe early June. So then we can have the report finalized to present to the standing committee. And we don't know when that standing committee meeting is going to be. Actually, was it on the schedule, Krista?
It should be on
I think I
it
saw it.
the week before the June 21st meeting, so
13th or 14th.
yeah, then it would be the 14th, I think.
14th, yep. So June 14th would be the MVPE committee meeting. That would be hopefully getting the report prepared prior.
Yeah, and we generally need to have everything posted a week before, so it would have to be probably done by the 7th of June.
Correct. So we'll see how far we get, and then I think it would make sense to if we have additional things to discuss on items that we've reviewed, to hopefully have some people volunteer to dive a little bit deeper, and then schedule another meeting either last week of May or maybe early first week of June. Would be my suggestion.
And then once we get into the review of submitted code change, it'd be helpful if we had a regular day of the week that you would all prefer to meet on. We'd either be meeting probably every other week, or if we, depending on how many we get, possibly every week, but most likely every other week once we begin review.
Agreed.
So if anybody has any preferences, let us know, please.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is Kevin Dwell. Mondays are good for me.
Me as well. This is Allie Boris.
Dave?
I'm thinking maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday might be a little better because I know a lot of people wrap vacations around Mondays and Fridays. It's a thought.
Yeah, this is Steve. Fridays typically are best for me, but I'll make it either way.
And the only day that's really maybe the worst day for me would be Friday. So, but I do know Memorial Day's coming up, or yeah, Memorial Day's coming up in a couple weeks. So.
Okay. So I don't know, Krista, would it make sense to circulate something to the tag members via email to hopefully pin down a day?
Sure, we can try something.
Yeah, because I know we don't have everyone on today as well. That would be good. And give people a chance to look at their schedules, and we could send out like I don't know, a couple dates for, and then if there's specific days that work on some weeks versus others, then hopefully we can find a good balance for everyone.
I have a suggestion that we use a doodle poll, send out several dates and then give us by majority, that's the date, that's the time.
Unfortunately, we're limited as to what softwares we can use here at the state. So that's not really an option we have available at this time.
Yeah, so I've kind of heard every day of the week is preferred by some, but yeah, so I guess it seemed like Mondays did seem like it was potential for most people, and we did get pretty good attendance today. So we might try that, but if there's something where we get a lot of responses back where people cannot make it, maybe we'll look at altering that. But I think that might be a good place to start.
Okay.
All right. Any additional discussion on schedule? Are you ready to get into code changes? Yeah. All right. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 4. Does anyone have a preference if we start with the IMC or IFGC? I think the IFGC changes are much more minimal, or they're similar with the other codes, so it might be a little bit quicker. We want to try to get through that before doing the IMC, but I'm open to suggestions.
Sounds good to get some momentum going.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. All
Okay,
right. Take it away, Krista.
this is significant changes. Let me find the existing here. That's not it. Sorry, my computer's a little slow. Okay, these are the existing amendments in the International Fuel Gas Code. So this first one is just to keep us aligned with the statutory requirements to accept the LP gas code and the National Fuel Gas Code for all LP gas installations. And I don't know if you want to comment on each item or go through everything and then go back on things that people have an interest in discussing, or
Yeah, I guess the IFGC, maybe just run through all of them, because there's not that many, and then maybe we can circle back.
okay, so the second one is changed authority having jurisdiction to code official for subject to fines established by and I'm not sure how many jurisdictions the code official is establishing that fine versus the local governing body. So even though it's a state amendment, I'm kind of suggesting that someone do a code change proposal to put it back to how it is. But as it is a current code change or a current state amendment, there's nothing that changed in the base code to get rid of it at this point. There was a line added to gas valve standards to allow an additional standard for a larger flanged valve option. And in concert with that, that standard was added to the reference standard chapter. And that's it for the existing amendments.
Great, thank you. I had a question. I guess what in this first one, do you know why the and townhouses is bolded but not colored?
It is bolded because the current state amendment retained the old language where it said multifamily units less than 3 stories, open on 2 sides, parentheses, townhouses. And I think it was the 2018 code. They decided that by now everybody knows what a townhouse is as defined by the code, and it's a defined term. So we're just going to take all that language out and replace it with townhouses. So I'm suggesting that we modify our existing amendment to accept that change. But it happened back in 2018 and not this current code.
Gotcha. And did we not pick it up in the 2021?
We did not.
Okay.
And it should have been.
Gotcha. So an editorial item there. And then I guess I didn't look at this yet, but I don't know if anyone's reviewed these. And then is there any issue with some of the changes to like the multiplex legislation language that we need to look at including this? I don't know if anyone on staff had looked at that portion.
I don't think it would need any changes. Justin, do you have any comments on that? Are you still here? That looks
I
like
am still here, but I don't have any comments on it for you guys know.
Yeah, I think that would be coming out of that study group if there would be any changes, but at this point, I really don't see anything happening for the fuel gas code.
Okay.
Or the mechanical code for that matter.
All right. Any TAG members or other attendees have any comments on these existing amendments? And then I guess going back up to 114.4 for the code official. So to clarify right now, like we're using code official in the same similar section for other codes. Is that correct?
Just the mechanical, all the others stayed as established by the jurisdiction.
Okay.
So it's just those two that are now outliers.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. It probably makes sense to have them align unless anyone on the tag, especially from the cities and counties or code official side, have any thoughts?
Well, this is Steve Hart. So the verbiage for authority having jurisdiction is similar with all the other codes, with the exception of the mechanical code. They tried to change that to just code official, which the IFGC falls under the mechanical code. Is that why it's being transitioned to code official?
Yeah, this was a code change proposal from last year that the tag accepted. and went through the process. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, everything in the plumbing code says authority having jurisdiction, and everything that our program uses that would be enforceable through the IFGC would be by the verbiage authority having jurisdiction. So I'm not in favor of having the plumbing code say authority having jurisdiction and the fuel gas saying code official. I would like them to be consistent. So I'm not in favor of that strikeout authority having jurisdiction. I say remove code official and remain having authority having jurisdiction. Other comments?
I am not.
Well, the issue is that since this is an existing state amendment, but there is no model code change to this section, as a part of the existing amendment review, we're just looking at any changes in the model code that would affect the existing amendments. And since there are no changes here, it would require another code change proposal to change it back to how it exists in the model codes.
And I guess what could we put noted in the report in the comments section if we did want to indicate that, or if
Right.
I don't know if other tag members have any discussion points on this, or if I don't know if we have anyone that has kind of more background on why we had changed it to code official last go around. It does seem odd that it would get pushed to be non-consistent with other sections.
I guess the going forward would be, shouldn't all of them say either code official, the whole suite? Or all of them should say authority having jurisdiction? I'm not really sure who or why the mechanical code has to be proportioned out of the common language and all the other codes under the ICC suites. And the mechanical code have to be different. Is there something so outside of the way that the mechanical code and the IFGC is viewed that it has to say code official? I'm not sure why somebody would arbitrarily just say, hey, I like the sound of code official better than authority having jurisdiction. It just doesn't make any sense to me when everything else says authority having jurisdiction in all the other codes, all the other suite of ICC codes. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, you're asking somebody who's a code enforcement entity to say, well, over here, I'm going to write the building code authority having jurisdiction. But then when I reference the mechanical code for your, whatever stop work order or your violation, I'm going to have to say code official. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I would think somebody who is in code enforcement would say, no, let's not have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different names calling the same entity a different thing. But that's just my opinion.
Ironically, I think the original code change proposal did come from one of the code enforcement members of the tag.
It probably works great for them, but not everybody else. I mean, if we're going to do that, we should change all the other suites to code official. I'm sure they use the building code and the electrical code and the plumbing code and all the other codes. They should all say code official.
Is there anyone who believes that we should retain the code official language? If not, I will go ahead and note that
And Krista, could you I'm looking at the 2021 code change proposals. I don't see this one on here. I'm curious when it was introduced or how it was introduced.
It was introduced in the 2021 code change.
Mhm.
I don't think it came in the original.
I mean, I can see where they removed authority having jurisdiction, yes, by definition, and inserted code official. But it's strange that they give the definition for code official as the officer or other designated authority. I'm not sure what that's supposed to represent. There's more to it than that, but I'm just making a point that they call out the authority, but yet they won't call the authority the authority.
So I guess, Krista, like what for the initial report, yeah, I guess that would kind of be our position. And then I don't know if it would be up to the committee or the council to determine if that needs a proposal to do that, or could we just decide to not maintain the existing amendment?
Typically, because this was a council determination to create the state amendment, the tag doesn't really have the authority to just wave it away. It would take a code change proposal and go through that process to make that change.
And would that be typical with any other existing amendments that we find issue
Right,
with
unless
potentially?
there was a change with the model code that impacted the state amendment in some manner.
Gotcha. And is there actually a change? I see the blue highlight there. Is it like there's a numbering change or
The only
something?
thing that changed was the section number because they
Okay.
rearranged 104 and 105.
Gotcha. Okay. Right. So yeah, I think that recommendation seems consistent. Unless any other tag members want to discuss it. Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, so I guess I'm researching around on this. I don't remember this changing either, but it looks like at the beginning of when you're looking at the 2021, I'm looking at mechanical code right now, I guess. Washington State, its references an opinion based on RCW 1927-031 for code authority of the code official. I don't know if I didn't find any code proposal changes from the 2021 cycle, but I'm not sure if it's part of that, an opinion or something that was issued.
I think it might have been from just the review of changes and somebody
Got it.
said, oh, this needs to be changed. And for some reason, it went through, even though, well.
Yeah, I agree. It should be consistent between the codes. And so if we need a code proposal to change it back, we just need to figure that out and assign someone to in the past when we found these kind of changes, someone from the tag or someone has volunteered to write that code proposal, and we can kind of identify that as we go through. So I guess let me know if I need to write a code change proposal on this, or somebody else wants to step up and do that if it's required. So
great. Thanks, Eric.
I'm all in favor of you, Eric, writing it up.
add it to the list. Got a whole bunch of them planned. So.
All right. Well, I think one of the things that maybe the reason that they modified the mechanical code is because the IFG falls underneath it. But, the IFGC is written by 33 different entities. So, I mean, you're not going to nail down like the IMC, which is ICC. So it's one entity. And so somebody may have just said, well, it doesn't align in the same verbiage. So at least if it falls under the IMC, it could be in the IFGC changed. And maybe that's the reason for the change. I don't know. Because you won't find a definition for authority having jurisdiction in the IFGC. You'll only find it for code official. And so I'm thinking that's the reason that maybe they did that and changed the IMC to do the same.
That sounds possible.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, any objections to keeping with what's written there for the tag recommendation, that we're still looking for alignment on this term going forward. And then thank you, Eric, for being voluntold for the amendment. All right. Any other tag discussion or other attendee discussion for other existing amendments? We're ready to look at the model code changes.
And there was a code change proposal that went through and did some cleanup to change the term accessible, following up on a widespread model code change proposal that went through in 2018 to kind of catch some of the things that were missed the first time around. So you can see the list of sections there that had the term replaced. I did not show all of section 104, 105 in the summary that, well, maybe I did show it all.
Seemed like it was all there.
Yeah, they just completely rewrote, moved things around to try to make 104 and 105 work better.
And this is also in the mechanical code,
Right.
same language. And is it?
Yeah.
I didn't check the building code, but I believe it's similar there as
This
well.
was an admin change, so it should have gone through most of the model codes. Sometimes you have one committee that won't accept a change and all the other committees do it. Sometimes the code correlation committee will then go back and try to fix it, but for the most part, this should be consistent throughout most of the codes. There are a few differences based on what's in a particular code. The fuel gas has a couple of different sections or sections that don't appear that are in the mechanical. But for the most part, it is the same in both.
And I don't know if the building code tag had looked at this section yet, or if they had any discussions on it.
Dustin?
This is Steve Hart. I haven't looked at any of these changes as of today.
All right, so I don't know if anyone has gone through these for this code or any other codes and found issue with any of the language. I did not see anything that stuck out to me, but we can discuss it here. There's the mechanical code has, well, pretty, like Krista was saying, probably almost identical except for maybe some of the sections numbering.
So a lot of this was moved in from 105 and then the 105 was. And Dustin says that the IBC tag hasn't reviewed this section yet.
Okay. I guess, yeah, would someone on the tag want to volunteer to do a more thorough review of this section prior to the next meeting? Obviously, like the section pertains specifically to code official duties and like, powers here. If there's any changes that may affect other sections, or I guess, Krista, do we need to include this one in terms of significant cost changes if it's a section that applies to basically all the codes?
According to the ICC code change proposal, they identified it as having no cost. It was just an editorial change to the existing language.
Gotcha. All right, so I don't know. I think this would be a good one for someone to take a closer look and see if there's any issues with it as it pertains to either the mechanical or the fuel gas code.
Ben, I can take this,
Okay.
the research on that. So section 104, and then did you say there was 105 too, or no? I'm just seeing 104.
Right, what they did was take most of the language out of 105 and merge it into 104.
Okay, got it.
I can send you the concise or the code change history on it if you'd like.
Okay, that'd be helpful. And then I can research it and report back at our next meeting.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura.
So the next change or next significant change is in the appeals that specifies that your appeals board members should be experienced and trained on matters pertaining to the provisions of the code and not just employees of the jurisdiction. And then the Board of Appeals information was pulled out of Chapter 1 and moved into an appendix chapter on establishing and maintaining a Board of Appeals. And on to the definitions. Definition of approved agency. Just remove the word agency and replaced it with organization. And added evaluation or certification on, rather than just product certification, they included evaluation. The definition for listed added the last sentence, terms that are used to identify listed equipment, products, or materials include listed, certified, classified, or other terms as determined appropriate by the listing authority. And a new definition was added for peer review, and that's consistent through the model codes. All of those were consistent throughout the model codes. They were all admin code change proposals. So the first of the changes that I identified as significant is in section 306.5 on access. And there was a proposal that attempted to correlate everything with the OSHA standard and the new language there. We do have the one state amendment on the ladders that has the rung spacing not to exceed 12 inches. And I went back and researched L&I's WSHA requirements, and they still reference an older version of the ANSI standard that has the 12-inch standard in it rather than the 14 inches, 10 to 14 inches that's in the newer standard. So I was recommending that we, is this, yeah, this is fuel gas. Why didn't I have this in the other one? I'm sorry, if this didn't make it into the existing state amendment one.
Yeah, was it in, I think it was in the mechanical version of this.
Yeah, it's in the mechanical version. Because the same language is repeated in both. Either that or I just left it from the mechanical one because I did that first and then cut out the pieces that didn't apply. I might have left this one in. And then the other changes are just for consistency with the ANSI standard.
Yeah. So for this one right now, like the 12-inch, not to exceed 12 inches is referencing an older ANSI standard.
Right, that it is still the current WSHA standard.
Gotcha. And there's no minimum.
There is no minimum in that standard, no. Okay, that's what it is. there was no amendment in the IFGC, even though this was repeated language. And so the IFGC requirements didn't match the IMC. I should read my own recommendation. So I'm recommending that we put that language in so they match.
And I guess are all the other things that have been amended in the model code also kind of in line with, or I guess the previous values, or any of those like consistent with the WSHA standard that's being referenced, or are there other things that are getting changed to kind of align with the newer reference for OSHA? I guess I would agree. I saw Kevin gave it a thumbs up as well to agree. I don't know if other tag members, anyone else, any thoughts on this one?
And just for the sake of consistency, it should mirror the IMC. And then those two should obviously align with other safety guard rules that are in place and established already as far as limited spaces and spacing. So I'm agreeing that this is a good change.
I have not checked with L&I to see if they have a rule change someplace in the next year or two planned. I should probably do that just to see if they're gonna update their ANSI reference.
And I guess the intended amendment that we would be envisioning would be striking out the existing state amendment and adopting the model code language for not less than 10 inches and not to exceed 14 inches.
Well, there's currently not a state amendment in the IFGC. It's in the mechanical.
It is, the IFGC language is just getting mirrored over, or
Right, I'm suggesting that we mirror the
okay,
IMC
I
language.
got you now.
That's why it's highlighted in addition to being in red.
Okay.
But I will check with L&I and see if they plan to update the ANSI reference. And I can double check. That was the only big change that I saw in my review of ANSI, that there was a difference in the 12 inches versus the 14 inches. But I can double check and see what's going on.
Yeah, I would agree. Like consistency with L&I would be important. Sure. Okay, so yeah, maybe Krista, you can look into that and provide me updates on that when we reconvene next time. All right.
Okay.
Good.
The next change is in 407.2, where they just removed the specification for metal supports with the rationale that there are other products that work just as well as metal, that, or possibly better, and that this was outdated. And again, this was not marked as having any kind of cost associated. And then this is just a listing of all of the updated standards and the new standards. I didn't include the names of the standards. So the new standard was standard on cold form steel. And the blue is the updated standards. And the red one is the gas valve addition that we have to the table. So these are mostly just the reference to the updated standard, or sometimes there's a slight change in title of the standard. And those are the highlights from the changes to the fuel gas code.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on any of the other model code changes that we kind of looked at besides 104 and then the 306.5 ladder section? There's a couple of the new definitions and things that I think a lot of the definitions are also shared with other codes as well. I believe some of those changes. All right. I guess do you want to try to get some voting going for I guess there's a couple sections in the existing amendments, as well as the model code changes that we still want to look at a little bit. But I guess other than that, any other discussion on tag members moving forward for recommending adoption and or retention of existing amendments?
Hey, Ben, this is Steve Hart. I guess I'm a little bit curious at this point right now exactly what we're trying to, fully accomplish here in looking at this IFGC. Are we trying to wrap this up in its entirety and make a up or down vote into having this like basically reviewed and done with? Or are we just making a observation of making recommendation that we're not taking objection to what we're currently looking at as far as modified language or amendment?
Gotcha. And Krista, you might be able to explain this better than I can, but I would say like to keep things moving, it would be probably good if there are sections that we want to parse out and investigate further, we could do that. But if the majority of these everyone's feeling comfortable and that they make sense for adoption into kind of the initial report out to the council and standing committee, then we would need to do a vote or motion to um, like provide a recommendation that that staff can then uh, put into the report and move forward. This is kind of my overall statement. So, Krista, I don't know, does that make sense and is that consistent?
Yeah, the goal of the report is to just highlight to users and stakeholders what changes are being made. And if there is some impact that should be recognized or mitigated if necessary. And so it's if the tag feels that these are good changes and should go forward, or just, yeah.
Yeah. And we could, I guess when we had chatted before, Krista, we kind of talked about different ways to do this, and we could look at like larger chunks or the whole kind of list of changes that are presented here to vote on, or we could go like section by section to vote on to move forward with approval. And then if there are sections that we know we want to discuss next time, we could leave those out from that.
I think that's a better approach, Ben, to just, go each little section here and ask for a motion to accept or table or have discussion for a later date.
Okay, works for me. All right. All right, I guess, yeah, for the first section, does someone want to make a motion to adopt these?
Steve Hart, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the accessible versus providing access change.
Is there a second?
This is Kevin. I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any in opposition? Okay, did you want to then table all of 104, 105 until Laura comes back next time?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd like to make a motion that we table 104 and 105. This is Steve Hart.
All right, you got a motion on the table. We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Um, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right.
Okay, so qualifications for appeals board is the next one.
All right. Does someone want to make a motion to adopt?
Steve Hart, I make a motion that we accept the change.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
And I'll make the language more consistent when I clean this up. Board of Appeals, the removal of that section to the appendix.
This is Steve Hart, I'd like to make a motion that we remove that Board of Appeals, section 114.
Second.
All right. We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
A definition of approved agency.
This is Steve Hart, I accept the motion for the definition for agency.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
And next one is change to listed, adding the extra sentence.
This is Steve Hart, I'd like to table this section 202 by definition in the last sentence, just because it's given the listing agency the authority to name the listing that might be outside of current language as listed or certified. So I'd like to make a motion that we table this definition for more consideration to discussion.
All right. There's a motion on the table. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion on this one? No? Okay. All in favor of tabling this?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
And then the new definition of peer review.
This is Steve Hart, I'd like to make a motion to accept the changes to definition in 202 for peer review.
Second.
All right. We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Okay, the access standards for equipment and appliances on roofs or elevated structures.
This is Steve Hart, I'd like to make a motion that we accepted changes by amendment, provided there's no conflict through L&I.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this one? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Oops. All opposed? Okay.
Okay, next one is removal of the specification for metal and piping support.
This is Steve Hart, I'd like to make a motion for section 407.2, removing the term metal from the language by change.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
And then there's all the reference standards.
This is Steve Hart, I'd like to make a motion, we accept all the reference standards in chapter 8 as changes.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay, are we ready to move to the existing amendments on mechanical code?
Do we need to do we need to provide our tag recommendations for the existing amendments, Krista?
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, so hopefully we can almost close out one code today. Unless anyone else has any issue with that. Okay.
Okay, so the inclusion of the 2 LP gas standards in the scoping.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Yeah. Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right. I think we discussed the intent here, but I think for this the code official language, let's do we already do a motion for this, Krista?
We did not do a motion.
Okay.
It was just general consensus.
Okay. Yeah, so if someone wants to propose a motion.
This is Steve Hart, I'd like to make a motion that we table the section 114.4 for further discussion.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Okay, the addition of the extra standard for gas valves on table 40911.
This is Steve Hart, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the changes to table 409.1.1.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
And then the addition of the standard that's referenced in that table to the reference standard chapter.
Steve Hart, I'd make the motion that we accept the reference standard change found in table 409.1.1.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Steve, for making a couple dozen motions.
Okay, these are the existing amendments in the IMC. And So we're back to the scoping section, adding the statutory language for the inclusion of the LP gas standards. Plus we have an added sentence that says that Group R includes Group I1 Condition 2 and Group I1 assisted living and residential treatment facilities. This was based on an emergency rule the council did back in 2015 to ensure that those facilities were included and treated as a Group R. Because of the changes made with the new Group I1 versus R4, and we had previously not accepted R4. And I'm giving a really bad description of this, sorry. But that was the council's solution to allowing residential treatment facilities and assisted living facilities to be treated as residential occupancies rather than Group I.
And I believe there's a similar building code amendment. Is that correct?
There was at one time.
Yeah, I don't see it there.
Yeah, I think it might have been also. Yeah, maybe it was just mechanical. Eric, do you remember?
I don't remember if it was just mechanical. I can go look a second. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm only asking Eric because he was chair of the tag at the time, so. I do suspect that we will be getting code change proposals centered on the Group I1 Condition 2. Stuff throughout the codes.
Yeah, I think this was mostly a mechanical code. I mean, there's something similar in the energy code, I believe. That's where the other one exists.
And I think it mostly centered around doors and ducting. Those were the two big issues that we were looking at.
Yeah, which ventilation provisions apply where, I think is kind of.
Yeah.
the building code is much more specific about what applies where in general, I think, for these different occupancies, so. But yeah, this similar statement is also at the beginning of the energy code in section C101.2 to help clarify which energy code provisions apply where. But yeah, I don't think it's in the building code because the building code just has sections for these different uses. Or occupancies, yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I guess anyone else have any thoughts here? I guess it's been part of the code for a while now, so I don't know if anyone has had issues with this or other items that they're expected to be impacted within the existing amendments or with the model code changes. And then,
yeah, I'd agree. We probably keep this unless there's proposals that are very specific about the ventilation in these type of different spaces. So, you know, there could be a code proposal to get out of this general reference and put very specific references throughout the code, but that would be pretty, you know, that would take some work. So.
Well, they're also looking at reestablishing the group R4, and so a lot of this would be integrated into that rather than, but that's still a ongoing project.
I don't have any objections with just leaving this and carrying this over.
Did you want to vote on these item by item, Ben, or do you want me to just go through and do the whole?
Yeah, I was actually thinking as we're going through these item by item, I don't know if any of the tag members feel that it would make sense to if there's consensus, if we just want to do a quick vote on it so we can get the tag recommendation in there as we go, or we want to try to go through quickly and then come back around. And I'm guessing we're probably not going to have enough time to go through all of them and have discussion before voting if we do it that way. So I think it would make sense if we wanted to make motions on them to provide tag recommendations as we go. I would agree. I was actually looking up because I know there's some, and this I think this is maybe captured better in the model code changes with there's some additional definitions for maybe ambulatory care facilities. So I don't know if that needs to get untangled or anything, but I don't think it pertains specifically to this section. So.
The ambulatory care, those have specific ventilation requirements in chapter 4, and they're not grouped back into, yeah. So I think that's fairly well defined there now, but
yeah. Right. So yeah, I guess, yeah, if someone wants to make a motion to retain this, or if we want to table it for further discussion.
I can make a motion to retain this this language in this section 101.2.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion in a second. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Laura. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right.
Okay, and then the same failure to comply language on the fines as was in the fuel gas.
All right, someone want to make a motion here if we want to? I
And it
believe
was
we tabled
tabled
it.
in the other one.
Yeah.
I make a motion to table this until next meeting.
I can second that.
All right. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then we have definitions. First is balanced whole house ventilation. I think the model code has a definition for just balanced ventilation versus
Yeah, I think that's
whole
something.
house, and they're slightly different.
Yeah, and I think we should, yeah, that'll be something that would be good to talk about. I don't think it impacts what the current code or what we have the 21 codes using the definition for, but I don't know if anyone had looked at what the model code change language and introduced that definition.
Yeah, I think that definition was changed in 2018. I don't think there's any changes to it in the 2021 code.
Correct. So they changed in the model code change it the definition how it gets used seems to be different. Like I guess if we want to look at this a little bit more, I think it might be helpful.
I guess he did.
Yeah, so they actually changed like the verbiage in here for the model code language for balanced ventilation system. And the way it currently reads, it's indicating where the mechanical supply airflow and exhaust airflow rate are within 10% of the average of the two airflow rates versus like the previous language, which was indicating where the mechanical exhaust airflow rate was within 10% of the supply airflow rate. So I don't know, when I guess on my side, when I've looked at this, it seems like it could create some situations where you could have some very different airflows in those using those two definitions. So with the new code, if you're using the average, you could have some very different values for that supply and exhaust airflow rate and still meet that, be within that 10% of the average. Versus just looking at being within 10% of the supply airflow. So I don't know, that seemed a little bit suspect. If we're just considering the existing amendments, I don't know if it's really pertinent to look at this until we go back to the model code changes, but I would highlight this for TAG members to look at if you have expertise looking at this this area or using this code section, because it does seem to present some discrepancies. And then I guess Krista, with the model code definition for balanced ventilation system, my understanding is that it only applies, or it's only referenced in one section 403.3.2.1, and the existing amendments are superseding that, or they remove it and replace it with state amendment language. So I'm wondering if the the model code definition is actually needed in the first place for our scenario. Would be something I think would be good to align if we have a definition we're not using anywhere, and maybe introducing confusion with the state amendment definitions.
So just to be clear, that's a new definition in the 2024 IMC.
So I believe they had a definition for balanced ventilation system in 2021.
Okay.
But they've changed the language of the definition for 2024. So I think it would be good to look at maybe when we're reviewing the model code changes, unless anyone on the tag wants to look at that more in depth now, or do we want to discuss any of these existing definitions for maybe looking at like the balanced ventilation, distributed ventilation definitions as a package. Or if someone wants to make an amendment or a motion to recommend retaining one or more of these definitions.
I guess I'll make a motion to retain these existing amendments.
And Kevin, maybe could you specify which ones you're...
Okay, sure.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
That's
It's only appropriate. So yeah, motion to accept the existing amendment to the definitions of these three phrases: balanced whole house ventilation, not balanced whole house ventilation, distributed whole house ventilation, and I thought I said 3 earlier, I meant 4, sorry, and not distributed whole house ventilation. So those 4 definitions.
All right, we got a motion on the table. We have a second.
I'll second.
All right, great. Any other discussion? Any other comment from attendees? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, great. Thank you.
And the definition on enclosed kitchen to correlate with some of the hood exhaust requirements in chapter 4. And interior adjacent room and interior adjoining space to help clarify some of the whole house ventilation requirements.
Yeah, I think all 3 of those are kind of part of the review.
Yeah, all 3 of those were added in the 2021 code cycle for specific event ventilation requirements to try to. So I think, yeah, they're all referenced somewhere and they're all Washington State specific amendments. So.
I can make a motion to carry over these existing definitions into the new state 2024 code.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
This is Kevin. I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
A new definition for local exhaust. It correlates with the IRC requirements and replaces source-specific ventilation.
And I guess, Krista, was this in the 2021 mechanical code, or is this one we're bringing over?
No, it's in the 2021.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
it goes back to original was 2012 and it was modified in 2018 and carried on since then.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. But yeah, it's not new for the 2024. It's been in the Washington State Mechanical Code for some time. Thank you.
I can make a motion to carry over this definition of local exhaust.
This is Allie. I'll second.
Great. We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Okay, definition of permanent construction to help clarify requirements in section 306.6.
I can make a motion to carry over this definition of permanent construction.
All right, got a motion on the table. Do you have a second?
This is Kevin. I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
And then we've got definitions for relief air and replacement air for clarification. Relief air comes from Seattle, replacement from ASHRAE 90.1.
I can make a motion to carry over these two definitions.
Thank you. We got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Kevin.
Great. Motion to accept these two definitions. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Okay, then we have the definition of the whole house ventilation system that's goes back quite a ways, and definition from ASHRAE 62.1 for ventilation zone.
I make a motion to carry over these two definitions.
All right, we got a motion on the table. Is there a second?
This is Kevin. I'll second.
Thank you. Motion to carry over these two definitions. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
And then there's the OSHA, WISHA access language in 306.5 that we discussed under the fuel gas code previously.
I make a motion to carry this amendment over as suggested in the document here.
We got a motion on the table. Is there a second?
This is Kevin. I'll second just to follow the pattern.
Okay, and then I guess for the fuel gas code, I will clarify that we did, I believe in that motion, indicate that we were wanting to confirm alignment with L&I requirements. I don't know if we want to amend that motion.
I can amend the motion to include that that it follows suit with the L&I requirements.
All right,
I think
Kevin.
that's what you said.
I'll second
Ben.
that too.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So the motion on the table is to adopt the change, I believe, but following alignment with L&I and confirming what their current references. So that can align with what you were saying, Laura and Kevin.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. Any discussion? Any others want to chime in? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Sustained amendment for appliances above ceilings.
All right. Any discussion here? I mean, I think this is a pretty important one to look at. I'm actually looking at it because I didn't check if there's the word accessible in here anywhere that might need to get updated.
I think that got updated for the 28 or the 2021 edition. Shall
Okay.
be provided with access.
Okay, nice. All right. Any further discussion, or does anyone want to make an motion here?
This is Kevin. I'll make a motion to retain the existing amendment to 306.6. Appliances above ceilings.
Thank you. There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I can second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to retain the existing amendment to 306.6. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, there's a amendment that adds a second exception for unducted fan coils in the auxiliary drain system requirements.
I can make a motion to carry over this amendment into the new code.
Okay, motion on the table, is there a second?
This is Kevin, I'll second.
All right. Okay, so motion to retain the amendment to 307.1.1. Any discussion or others? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, an amendment to the requirements for ductless mini split system traps that allows other means of condensate drainage as long as it meets the manufacturer's instructions.
I make a motion to carry over this amendment.
All right, we got a motion on the table. We have a second.
I will second. This is Kevin.
I guess I hadn't looked at this before, but I was kind of curious on the language. It seemed a little bit unclear to me as the section is indicating the trap requirements. However, the amended language seems to be talking about condensate drainage itself. I was wondering if this was consistent with how it was written before.
As a point of discussion, it is the charging language is traps, but it's traps for condensate drainage. So a manufacturer may have another means of how shall I say controlling air in the line than a trap. There are other ways to do it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, and thanks for clarifying that. All right, I don't have any other questions here. Anyone else? All right, so motion to retain the amendment to 307.2.4.1. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, so next is kind of the scoping for section 401. And we rewrote this based on the way we structured the residential ventilation requirements and pulled out additional pieces and did subsections below it rather than including it all in that. And I'm actually going to show you the amended code itself just to make it clearer. It's kind of hard. So you can see how we pulled down the requirements for specific for group R, ambulatory care, and all other occupancies. But left align with enclosed parking garages. Shall be vented by mechanical means. And I was suggesting that we pull out that as we did all the other requirements and make an additional 401.2.4 and change that scoping section a little, ventilation, every space shall be ventilated in accordance with 401.2.1 through 401.2.4, but we can just leave it with the enclosed parking garage language within the scoping main body, if you wish.
Gotcha. So what you have on the initial staff report here is kind of what it would be like just pulling out the language that conforms to those different sections currently. But
Well,
you've
this
left,
is what it
Yeah.
looks like currently.
right? And you've left the parking garage language as part of it.
Right.
I got a couple of questions on this. I'm wondering if the first sentence there, where every occupied space, jumping ahead, shall be ventilated in accordance with, is that still needed in there? Right now it just says shall be ventilated section.
Yeah, agreed. The in accordance
Yeah.
with should be brought back. It's not there currently.
There we go. And I like where you're going there, Krista. Just pull everything out. As far as how that would be structured, I think you'd want enclosed parking garages and buildings used for repair of automobiles as 401.2.3, and then make all others .4. So it's clear here. It's like this one, this one, this one, and then the catch all would be last.
That
That
makes
makes sense. But that's a lot to whip into shape right on the spot here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, so I guess the action that we could take today is, in terms of reviewing these, is that we can note that we'd want to review this further and provide some amended language, or someone would need to provide an amendment to update this language.
And is that a code change proposal, or is that something the tag can just offer?
I think in this case, the tag can just offer it because we're not making a substantive change. We're just taking the same information and reorganizing it.
Right, so we're editorial change to
Mhm.
to move the language around in a logical way. But yeah, and I would say, like, we have 1 minute left on the time, so Krista, do we need to make a motion to extend briefly, or do we need to defer this to next time?
That's up to the tag if they would like to go for a few more minutes and see. A few more minutes or however much longer they want to try to go. It looks like we're losing members at
Yeah,
a prodigious rate right now.
Yeah, I've got a hard stop right now, so I'm gonna have to bounce, Ben, but I don't think that I'm critical at this point, so.
All right. Thank you, Justin. Steve.
Yeah, I have another appointment. This was scheduled till 12. I just don't want to get 86th off the tag because I'm no longer at the meeting.
That will not happen. Okay, so I think this might be a good point to end at. And Kevin, I don't know if you want to try to take a look at this section and how it might lay out.
I guess
or-
Derek
or
go
others.
first, right?
Yeah.
So I guess a motion to table maybe, just to close it up. Till next
Um,
meeting.
I don't even know if we still have quorum right
Oh,
now.
okay.
So,
So
and we're
we
past our
motion
time.
to adjourn then.
And I don't know if we have to do that either, but Krista,
Okay.
let me know. Or,
Yeah. If we don't have enough people to vote for it,
we've run the clock out. So.
it's just,
There you go.
we're at the end of the meeting and
Okay.
we'll reconvene next time. I'll send out an announcement, try to set down a date. And we'll start with looking at some language for this section.
All right, great. Sounds great. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks, Krista.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ben.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, have a great week,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.